everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Tennis Files podcast. And it's really an honor and a pleasure to be interviewing Claudio Pistolesi today. It's really great to have somebody who has played at such a high level on the ATP Tour, as well as coaching at an unbelievably high level too, coaching many professional tennis players, as I had mentioned in the intro. So Claudio, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. It's really, really great to have you on.
Hello to all of you, and it's a great pleasure for me, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, for sure. It was actually very nice of you, to do this. I actually emailed you, and then very quickly after you responded that we could just do it right away, pretty much the same day. So that was awesome. So, and first of all, I have to give you some props on the Azzurri, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Italian football team, as of the day of this recording, at least, they have progressed to the finals of the Euro. So I bet you're really excited about that.
Yeah, it's a great time for Italian sport. We have the Azzurri for football, we call soccer in America, and tennis at Wimbledon. We'll talk about that. It's doing great with Berrettini. And also basketball with Serbia, which never doesn't happen very often. Italian basketball qualified for Tokyo Olympics. So a lot's going on in a positive way in Italian sport, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, Claudio. So that's great to hear, especially for you and all of Italy. So, like, as I mentioned, you've just undergone such a great career. And I always love to hear about how great players and coaches started in the great sport of tennis. So how did you get into tennis?
Well, I was born in 1967. So in the 70s, I was a kid. And in the 70s, Italy was a superpower in the men's tennis with Adriano Panatta as a leader. Still best player Italian ever. I don't know if Berrettini maybe soon can pass after many years, but Adriano Panatta is a legend. He's the one who bring popularity to Italy for tennis. So everybody was playing tennis, and my parents moved when I was 1 year old near a place with 20 tennis courts, and it was very natural. I was till 12. I made more than one sport. I was also playing football and swimming. So finally, soon I decided that tennis was my sport, and that's how I was able to take this pathway on tennis. And Italy won the Davis Cup in 1976, 5 times finalist, and Adriano won the slam. The last man's winning a Grand Slam was Adriano Panatta, 76 in Roland Garros.
Beautiful, Claudio. And so in terms of your junior career, because I'm curious to hear how you progressed to such great heights at an elite level, obviously. So at what point in your junior career did you start training seriously? And then what was that training environment like?
Well, I remember exactly when I won the Italian championships under 14. I won with good players, but wasn't really comfortable. And I really remember after I got the trophy, I sat in the garden behind where we did the ceremony. And I remember exactly when I decided to feel in my skin that I could go all the way to play as a professional, to play in all the majors. And I was really good in junior, soon internationally, and very good. I think I was junior number 1 in 1985. So I was feeding this self-confidence with a lot of work. I had very good coaches at that time that understand me, and very good physical trainer, which was pretty rare at that time in the 80s, which is one of the key why, in Italy we're very advanced now, specialists specific for tennis conditioning training. In other countries, not like that. So I was lucky to have good people next to me, and I went for really top level college career in the 80s.
Very nice, Claudio. So at that point, when you were 14 and you won that trophy, and then you decided to really go for it, like, did anything in particular change with your training regimen? Like, I know you said that you trained a lot on your fitness, but like, how much did your training change overall? And then if so, how did it exactly?
Well, it changed in amount of time, but I have to thank my father, because we talk about to go parallel education and sport, So my father was not give up a beat on my education as a student. He let me keep playing tennis at the condition that I could complete the Liceo Classico. Liceo Classico is the toughest in Italy as high school, because you study Latin, you study Greek. I was not understanding that time, but I had no choice. So the brackets were in wood. Until 16 years old, I played with wooden rackets so they could burn. And my father said, if you don't complete, I burn your racket. So I have no options and then keep going and study really hard. But I didn't realize, but it was the best, incredible mental training to be understanding things, to be committed with my brain in the morning and with my sport activity in the afternoon. So it was incredible tough, but I never give up. I really want to do both well. The first one more, but soon I understand that my studying was helping my tennis. So I was very tough mentally because I was training that even without realizing. And then, so I became a big fan of put together until completed high school age, even a cost of some hours of training. It's very worth it, I think, for the future to complete your, to be more mature in every aspect.
Well, that's a great point, Claudio. It's when you gain skills in tennis and gain skills in non-tennis things, and they tend to cross over. So that's really cool to know that, your intense studying actually did help your tennis, and I assume the decision making and also the mental toughness, as you mentioned. So in terms of when you decided to turn professional, when was that? And then how did you come about to that decision?
Well, very soon the first goal was to get ATP points. And I remember in Brescia and Challenger, I qualified. So this was allowing me to get 2 ATP points. And I was incredibly proud. I asked my mother to sew on my shirt the 2 written, 1 ATP point, 1 ATP point. So I was going around with this shirt. So incredibly proud because I was belonging. I exist as a professional player. I was not professional yet because I consider professional somebody that is playing major tournaments in the main draw. But I was belonging to the ranking of professional, and I was 17. So that's where I really felt another great step to be able to belong to this, consider yourself a professional tennis player, ATP. Very soon I start to know this association that I am a member since 1986. And I think that had a great impact on my feeling as an institution, on my institution, my point of reference to consider myself a professional tennis player.
Very nice, Claudio. And at that time, were you getting support from the Italian Federation, and was it any different than how it works now?
It was very different to work now, but yes, I did add the support until I was maybe 20 from the Federation. Adriano Panatta quit tennis in 83, and 84 I got my ATP points, and he became the director of the Federation at the time and captain of Davis Cup. At 18, I was already in the Davis Cup squad, so I was really the personality of Adriano is incredible, and nothing to do with the personalities. I have to say that we have now in the Italian Federation, and then it was good help, but the best help for myself, because I was able to be very international. I was always willing to travel, very unusual for Italian. I had a French coach at some point. Georges Deniot was also coaching Guy Forget. I learned French language very soon. I will spend a lot of time there. This gave me a really big boost to be international. So I was my original coach, Maestro Rasici, he was always telling me that you need to be international mentally. This I carry for all life as a player and then as a coach, as an example. And the traveling is university of life. You get more mature. You never refuse to have a confrontation with the players from other culture, other country, in different surfaces, and that was my really support. The institution, the federation, has the duty to support by the Olympics rules, at least in Italy, the best players. So they were doing nothing more than what they're supposed to do for their role. I like to emphasize the people, the Maestro Rasici, Andrea Panatta, and then Paolo Bertolucci was another of the legends in Italy that was winning Davis Cup in the 70s, was my coach. Antonio Zuccarelli, another one of the 3 out of the 4 Italian Mosquetier we call, was coaching me. So the culture and the human stories, you have to always look at the human story behind, that what makes the difference, makes it trigger your motivation, trigger your bouncing back difficulties. So you don't want to look at any system. You want to look at what the human part does, and the people next to the player choose to be next to them, which is happening big time nowadays with the great success of Italian tennis. The stories behind. That's I'm really. It's very clear for me. It's very obvious that's the reason.
Yeah, Claudio, great points there. So I have a couple of follow-ups. So one about is to just dive a little deeper into when you said that we have to look at the human story. So how do we do that?
Well, you have to look when you see somebody have successful. Give me an example, Matteo Berrettini, if you want to talk about him. I remember him when he was 18, so pretty not that young, at the end of the junior. And Vincenzo Santopadre, his coach, which is from Rome like me, grew up with me in the same club, and we always been together. I think I was a bit older, so they probably look a little bit at me as an example. He asked me, he said, Claudio, you are in the States. I know there is a family here. No, that time was Gianluigi Quincy was the superstar, born in 96. There is another boy that is growing a lot. I think it's very good that there is a chance to see if there is a spot in college for tennis, And okay, I will ask us here and there some coaches, and they say, no, that's not interesting for us. It's not good enough. The results are not good. We have better options. And we are talking about Matteo Berrettini. So the Vincenzo Santopadre believed on him so much. He sacrificed. He was traveling with England. Nobody even know who he is. And that's what it counts, because now jumping on the winning car, it's very easy, but you have to look what's happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years before, and Vincenzo Santopadre is still with him. Those are the best stories when they stay a long time. And so because the human relation, coach and player, the empathy, empathy comes from Greek in pathos. So one is in the emotion of the other. That's what it counts. The empathy, the care, the families knows the trust that the coach, players in the coach and vice versa brings the improvement, rise the level and brings the great results. So this is only one. That's what I mean with looking the story behind. So the story of Vincenzo Santopadre as a coach with Matteo Berrettini as a player is without any doubt the foundation of the historical, for us at least, the results that are happening right in these days. Like a few hours ago, Matteo booked a spot in the semifinal Wimbledon against Urkats, and still there.
Yeah, a lot of great accomplishments from Berrettini, and that's really eye-opening. I don't think many people know that he wasn't known or thought of to be a big talent, at that time that you mentioned. So, yeah, in terms of empathy, that's when I was doing some research on your coaching. I think you gave a presentation on empathy. So was that pretty much just, the coach empathizing with the player and understanding like what they're going through and what motivates them and things like that? Is that kind of the main, aspect of what you were talking about?
Yeah, coaching is my life, and I keep studying, I keep research. Coach has a lot of responsibility. One of them is to create a team around, because you need the highest you go as a level, the more you need a professional figure around the player to support every aspect of the top level. For example, the strength and conditioning coach, and I make the analogy with the musical orchestra. The coach has the I'll say the stick that conducts the music, so responsible for the music. So there is a guy that's played the violin much better than director. So, but the coach decide, the director of the orchestra decide when the violin has to be played, because he's responsible for the music, which is the player. So you have to be really well balanced. Keep studying. My main statement is that teaching and learning is a eternal cycle. If you're a teacher, you cannot stop to be a student. So you have to keep studying, create this atmosphere, this good balance around the player. It's a job at 360 degrees. You have to invest a lot on yourself as a coach. And yes, this is the foundation for tennis players to create opportunities for top level and results at the top level.
Very nice, Claudio. And yeah, it's very excellent for, these students of yours to have somebody who played the violin so well and then now conducting. So I want to go back to your professional career and ask you, what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned from your experiences on the tour that maybe you wish that when you were starting out on the tour that you had known those points at that time?
You mean lessons from the court or off court?
They could be either. I mean, just generally, some principles that, had you known in the beginning of your professional career, perhaps, you could have become number one or higher.
Yes, I think the best lesson was from Stan Smith. I had the chance to talk to him, that he was an incredible legend, and I had the chance to talk to him about the boycott of Wimbledon 1973. I'm a big passion for history of tennis. When the ATP is born in 72, he went through a huge step that all players, they got united for the rights of the players, to back up Niki Bilic, that he was a victim of huge abuse of power from ITF. And Stan Smith won Wimbledon in 1972, and he boycotted, so he didn't have the chance to defend his title. So I asked him, Mr. Smith, how could you have the courage to do something that you will never have the time to get a benefit from what you're fighting for? You are fighting for the next generation to create an association. And he told me, that was not the convenient thing to do, but was the right thing to do. So I the biggest lesson I ever had is from him, and to see that what is right is not always what is more convenient. And very often, more often, what you think happen that you have to choose that you want to, even if it's not convenient for you, you still do it because it's right. So this is the toughest, but the best lesson I ever had. And I try to keep in my mind, and I try to pass to my students as much as I can. And I'm always grateful to Mr. Stan Smith for this great lesson I had.
Yeah, beautiful, Claudio. Such a great lesson there. And so I guess, to transfer that to your professional career, where there's maybe some times where things were very difficult, and then maybe you didn't necessarily go through with it, where, now with that lesson, knowing that principle, you would have done the hard thing.
Yeah, I did a lot of mistakes. I think my treasure, my value as a coach is coming from my mistakes more than from what I did right. Because I did all the mistakes possible as I was junior world champion, and my best rank is 71. I am very proud of what I did. I think if you look at the list of players I beat is pretty impressive, starting from Mats Wilander 1988, the best year he had. But you never know if the glass is half empty or half full. For me, it's half empty, but it's not, I cannot prove. But yes, I did the mistakes, and also my body, the science and what we know as information for the body, for conditioning, was very rough at that time. And I was too much going in the direction of power. So I had surgery on my back at 27 years old. Don't forget the average of top 100 at that time was with 23 years old. Nowadays it's about 29 in the men's. So I was 27. I felt already a bit old, and maybe the best was already past. I was just influenced negatively from prejudice that was totally nonsense. But I didn't have many tools to judge, So after I came back from surgery on a herniation disc, which nowadays would take 2 months time to recover, it took almost a year to recover at that time. And then when I came back, I was not feeling the same. I started to think what was my chances to go back to the top. I lost some points in the ranking, but at least I started thinking I could have done, and I had the luck to have incredible opportunities starting a career as a coach. So I anticipate my playing career to quit 2 or 3 years earlier what I could, but then I started a new career as a coach, and that was a very good decision, one of the best decision, maybe the best decision I ever took in my life, professionally at least.
Yeah, it's must be a great feeling to impact so many, and teach so many coaches as well at conferences and things like that. So interesting point about the the science and fitness obviously has progressed a lot since you were on tour, and you mentioned kind of the focus on power. So I think this would be very interesting because a lot of players, especially amateurs, are still, of course, making a lot of mistakes in their physical training, particularly. So can you maybe give some specifics in terms of the training that was usually being done, and what were those mistakes, and then what should be happening instead?
Yeah, well, the focus at my time was a lot on explosive power. It was very common to work physically with the track and field guys. I was training with long jump, triple jump guys. So legs were very big. You muscle your body too much because you have to carry for 3 hours. The muscle are heavy. You see the body type of my time with the body type of the professional today is completely different. You see how skinny they are, starting from Djokovic. the mobility was not considered that important. Was some stretching here and there, but was not. Now the mobility of Djokovic is one of the reasons why he's doing what he's doing. And you can easily see when he plays. Body type is very skinny, very mobile, and light, so he can last a lot at 33. And I learned, by doing mistakes a lot in that, and in combination with great conditioning training. When I think of the most proud is that I understand that you need a conditioning training next to you as a coach job, and to bring from other sports and to teach them what you need as a tennis coach for tennis players for the body. And I had the luck to work with the best in the world. I can mention Marco Vanighi, which is now the conditioning trainer of Novak Djokovic. I worked with him for 15 years. I have the pride to bring him into tennis. He was working he was a policeman in Italy, and I convinced him to go to tennis in the past millennium in 1999 or something like that. And now Marco is a genius of this part. I want to mention Ali Gellem, that he is the one who built Robin Soderling. I have the privilege to be the coach of Robin Soderling. I was called from number 5 in the world with number 4 with me. And Ali is for sure one of the reasons why Robin did what he did. He wrote some of the page of tennis history, especially in Roland Garros, but not only. And so this part of we've been a little bit of a guinea pig for the future. We had a lot of injuries. We quit the career much earlier, but at least we opened the door to what not to do. And the coaching job made me think of the mistakes I did and to not repeat them, to not make the young players to do the same mistake I did. And probably they did the same with the next generation. So it's a job that you pass through the generation. Is an artistic job. It's not a scientific job. You need the sensibility. You need to understand the people. You need the empathy. You need the psychology. You don't go by the numbers. You don't go by the book. And you want to go by science, yes, but always driven by your feelings and your experience as a coach, in my opinion.
For sure, Claudio, love that. And you mentioned bringing top talent from other sports. So I was curious, are there any particular sports that tend to transfer well in terms of like the fitness principles coming to tennis, or, kind of similar question, which sports did these fitness experts come from that were able to provide the help and a progression to tennis fitness?
There's a variety of example. If you look in the tennis world nowadays, Kyrgios loves basketball. I'm sure that his conditioning coming from play a lot of basketball, because I saw him in the tournaments that he loves to play basketball. But meanwhile, he gets really good for jumping, change directions, to be coordination skills. There are many sports. We have unbelievable example that is very good example for the future in Italy with Yannick Sinner. Yannick Sinner was not a skier. He was a European champion of skiing at 12, 13 years old. So this main sport was not even tennis. And you see a lot of this institutional education. They go by the age and say, you have to do this from 8 to 10 years old, from 10 to 12, like everybody grows in the same way. Sinner was not even main sport, tennis, but he was incredible athletes. And the lack of tennis is that some coaches saw him in the mountains, believed in the mountains, as most of the skiers do. And they realized that he was incredible gifted for tennis. And the luck was that Yannick started to like tennis more than ski, and he left ski. The ski people in Italy is upset because they lost a great potential skier. And tennis got a great, of course, prospect, which is already top 20, 90 years old. And I like to remind that me and Yannick Sinner, we are in the special club of teenagers winning ATP event in Italy. He beat my record after 34 years for 2 months. But now it's still me and him in this club, and maybe Lorenzo Musetti will join soon, I guess, before he's 20 years old, I'm pretty sure. But it's great to be with him in this group. And the ski, I see him as a skier when he changed direction. When they open the court, they go to the side. He's so powerful, so stable. Like Djokovic, not a coincidence, Djokovic was a great skier too. So they don't lose the court because they have so much power in the lateral movement and come back. They don't lose the court, even being pretty tall guys. So this is one example. If you want to go on and talk about Italian players, what we mentioned before about the story behind Lorenzo Sonego. Lorenzo Sonego was a soccer player. He was playing Torino. It's very traditional soccer team in Italy, football team in Torino, his city. If you see when he went in the center court with Roger Federer 2 days ago, he had the mask of Torino. And so he's a big fan of Torino team, and he was playing soccer very well. But his coach, G. Guarbino, believed on him as a tennis player. And the first step was to convince him to play tennis when he was 14. And he was very far from being at the top of his age group in Italy. But with the work, with the believing of Gipo on him, and to keep feeding the confidence and never give up, he's incredible fighter, incredible athlete. And he was able to never stop progressing, arriving at the age, I think, 25 years old, beating Djokovic and being the top, 20, 25, and being the center court to give a hard time to Federer. And this is another story that has nothing to do with system. The word I like the least in tennis is a system. There is no system here. There is stories, there is a heart, there is feelings, and the fighting spirit, bounce back difficulties. That's what makes the player go into this level.
Yeah, very fascinating insight, Claudio. I'm sure the audience really appreciates, learning how these players became so great. And there's this book called Range, which is a great book. And, it talks about how a lot of people think that, they always think about Tiger Woods, where he specialized from like age 2 or something, only golf. But, they forget that, for Roger Federer, for example, he actually played a lot of sports when he was young and developed, athletic talents. And then it's interesting to hear that likewise with a lot of Italian players, the same thing that they've done. So I know it's tough to pinpoint, but like, what is the secret to the success for the Italian players, because you've had so much success, from your countrymen's, tennis playing?
Yeah, for the men's now and 10 years ago for the women, don't forget that we had a full Italian final in US Open, Pennetta Vinci 2015. And again, you have to look back each one by one. I just repeat what I said before. You have one by one story behind, people behind, going through a hard time. Roberta Vinci, for example, I remember she was maybe 25. I had the lunch with her. She said, I'm thinking to slow down my tennis. She was maybe 80 in the world. And she didn't give up. I said, Berta, you have to play, especially on grass and fast course. You slice back and has no one the same in the world. So luckily she kept playing. And then she find the right balance, the right coach, the right person. And very late, Pennetta, Vinci, Schiavone, they all won so much, but they all won after 30 years old. And Sara Errani, she went to Spain, so she is Italian, but like Fognini, tennis-wise, we have to be grateful to Spain as a country because they grew up in Spain, Fognini and Pennetta as well. So Pennetta, Errani, and I'm talking about slam winners or finalists in the women. Pennetta won the US Open, Errani won the final in French Open. There was in Spain, and they find outside Italy their pathway, and including Fognini. So the secret is that there is no secret. There is the secret is the people that the balance you find around you, the love for the game. Maybe if I have to mention one secret, the Italians were able to love the game. That's the secret, the love for the game, and that's helped them to never give up and keep improving, keep believing, and not only the players, but the coach around them. The private is a private product that makes this possible. And that's a secret. Now it's not a secret anymore because I told you. But that's the reason. That's obvious and clear. And you just have to observe the reality in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And so much traveling we did. I talked to Leonardo Caperchi, is the one who brought first Fognini in the top 100. He said, I felt that Fognini was something special when he started to win in Argentina. Now we got the respect by traveling. Traveling is very important. And we've been traveling a lot. And when we start to beat the others outside Italy, even though we have a lot of tournaments in Italy, which helps. But that when we get the respect years ago, and we transfer this respect to the next generations, and that's how we came to the nowadays situation.
Beautiful stuff, Claudio. Going back to your career, I was wondering, because this could help a lot of players in the sense that sometimes when we face, or a lot of times when we face higher ranked players where we've already lost before we stepped on the court, yet, you were able to defeat some really great players. And you mentioned, beating Mats Wilander. So if you could think back to that match, I'm curious to hear your mindset, preparation, when you're facing against a higher ranked player, like what was your approach to that match?
was very nervous. Mats won the Australian Open and Miami. I was in Monte Carlo, and I was able to beat Aaron Krickstein before Mats. I went through the qualies. I asked for a wildcard. Luckily, I didn't get a wildcard. Probably if I would get a wildcard, I would never do that, because I developed incredible strengths and confidence by winning 3 matches, including Wally Mazur, great players in qualies. Then I beat Peter Lundgren in first round, that he was top 25 in the world, a Swedish guy. And then I beat Aaron Krickstein, which was top 10. And I think I played better against Krickstein than against Wilander. Krickstein, I beat him 7-6 love, and this set is for sure the best set I ever played. And Aaron Krickstein, that he was a champion, and there was a lot of Italian watching me, and I went, like you take a wave on surfing and you stay on the wave. And I went to play center court, trying to do my best. I was not believing at all that I could win, and I lost. I was down 6-2, 3-1. It's funny, I have the DVD of the match that I was able to save. So I guess sometime I look at it. I showed this to Robin Soderling. He was very impressed. And then on 3-1, I said, okay, now I just want to try to win this set. I practically, the commentator was saying Pistolesi is already in the shower, things like that. And then I start to fight. I start to find my forehand. It was my best shot. And then I got into the flow. Only many years later, I learned what the flow is. The flow is what you change the perception. I was thinking, why he's playing so slow? He's number 1 in the world, but he was not playing so slow. My perception was bad. I was preparing earlier, and I got the plan. I just have to be patient, to move in a little bit, to wait the right ball, go around my forehand and play winner. I think I played 21 winners. I won the tiebreak second set, a very tough tiebreak. I played Bolles, a very difficult Bolles, which normally I was not playing. And then I promise you, when I sit down at the end of the second set, I said, there's no way I'm going to lose this match. I'm going to win 6-1 or 6-2. And I won 6-2, not to be arrogant, but the feeling was incredibly clear that I had him in my hands, and this happened very rarely for me, that I was not at the top, but I feel that the top players, they can recall this flow to rise the level when they need. And for me, it was coming sometime randomly. It came maybe 3 times in my life. This was likely one of these times. So it was my 6 matches in the tournament, and I was able to beat Mats. And my best ranking was 71 in the world. What I want to add is also the ranking is enough to judge a career. What is best ranking? Not that if you want to measure a player career, but you don't have to forget at that time Davis Cup was very important. I won the Italian championships with beating Cancellotti and great players. That was big title to win it. Don't give any ATP points. I was junior world champion, but the junior at that time, Bruno Oresar, was already very high ranked in ATP in the final. And Orange Bowl in Flamingo Park. So there are many things you did that don't count for the ranking. And also you have to look who you beat. So I beat Sergi Bruguera, Alberto Mancini, Thomas Muster, Wheaton, Krickstein twice. I beat several times top 10 or top players, Marc Rosset, Juan Aguilera. So many that makes me feel even more regretting that I was not consistent enough, because I should have do that more often, because I was able to do it. I proved it so many times. So again, the regret is when you finish the career is heavy to deal with, but nothing you can do. But what you can do is, if you are a coach, is to keep in mind that use it as your values to transfer to the player you coach.
Yeah, 100%, Claudio. So when I talked to Rick Macey, he talked about just flipping a switch mentally, and it sounded like it was either 2-1 or 3-1 down in the second that you were able to, it sounds like, flip the switch all of a sudden and decide that you wanted to win that match. And very interesting, even, before the match, you didn't necessarily think that, you had a chance and things like that. But how did you flip the switch? Like, how were you able to do that? Because I'm sure that a lot of players, they want to be able to do the same thing, that they're playing a match and all of a sudden they tell themselves, you know what, no, I'm going to win. And then they actually do it. So how did you do that?
I don't know. I didn't do it on purpose. I was there. I was thinking 6-2, 3-1. I was a bit embarrassed. Could easily, if I go on like this, it's 6-2, 6-1. Television, live in Italy. Monte Carlo is very, very popular tournament in Italy. My parents watching, everybody watching, and I said I need to do something. I had to focus on something. My coach, Zuccarelli, was helping me a lot to keep fighting, to find a way. I think I played one special game that changed my perception. So I think he came. naturally. I didn't decide. I mean, I tried to keep fighting. Don't give up on be just play another 20 minutes and get beat up 2-1 or something. And I start to feel. Feel is much more important than thinking. So I didn't think about that. And I felt that it was possible to rise the level, to be more competitive, well, one by one, the game. 5-0 and then tiebreak. And the tiebreak, I said, okay, here's the chance. So I fed my own self-confidence by fighting, to refuse to just accept that he was better and that's it. It was number one in the world. At the end of the year, in this moment, it was number 2 in the world. But by far the best player of the 1988 with 3/4 of a slam. So it came by feeling, not by thinking.
Very nice, Claudio. And then, in a kind of a related question is, you mentioned getting into flow and that you learned more about what that was, after your career. But what were some of the commonalities, like each time you got into flow? Were there certain things that you did before that to help it happen, or any insights on that?
No, I was doing a regular routine. I was playing Madrid tournament before. I lost second round. I went to Monte Carlo with my coach, but I was feeling very good with my coach in this moment. I trust him a lot. Torino Zugarelli was top player, one of the team Musketeers that I told you. And I was happy. To be there. And I was upset to not get the wild card. That time they never give to Italians. Now they give Italians all the time. But that was my luck, because I went through these qualies, and winning a lot of matches is the best medicine if you don't have enough confidence, So I earned it on court, game by game, point by point, feeding my self-confidence, my self-believing until I did probably the best results of my life. I don't know, because also won ATP event at 19. But anyway, that's what happened in Monte Carlo. So I won against Wilander April 21st, 1988. April 21st is the birthday of Rome, my city. This me as a Roma, we have a lot of pride to be Roman and try to prevail, to have this sense of complex of superiority. So I was feeling also there was the Rome birthday, the day. So I said it'd be great to do something special on this day, and luckily I did.
Very cool. And this next question is totally random, but so the former coach of my favorite team in the EPL was Mourinho, and he just went to AS Roma. So any thoughts on that? You excited, or what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't be more happy. It was totally surprising. But as I say, coaching is in my life. I look a lot other sport coaches. In America, the coaching is amazing. The Super Bowl is dedicated to Coach Lombardi. It has a lot of meaning. The Super Bowl, they name it after Vince Lombardi. Is a coach. So imagine the importance of coaches. In tennis is not enough, in my opinion. I'm very proud of being the father of ATP coach category. I invented this coach in 2010 before I was elected in the player council for 4 mandates in a row, and I was able to, with the help of the ATP, to create this category. Now it's the most ambitious title as a coach, because I believe coaching is life. Coaching is teaching, and this is not only sport, and this is the mission we have all for the next generations. In Japan, for example, the only category doesn't have to bow in front of the emperor is the teachers. This is incredible lesson of culture Japan gives to us. Japan, I know because I've been living there. It's a very important country of my life. Been traveling 35 years. So the coaching is all over the world, a key of the future of the humanity. So I'm very proud to be a coach. And Mourinho is one of the best examples. I can go on and tell you more about the coaching. I'm writing a book from Bill Tilden. Said 100 years ago, he wrote, it was not only one of the best player ever, he won 7 times Wimbledon, but he wrote about coaching, Bill Tilden, in the 20s, exactly 100 years ago. And he wrote that you want to treat every student as an individual, not everybody the same. So he's saying what I'm telling you now. Bill Tilden was writing is in Italian is the code of the game. Luca Bottazzi, friend of mine, he translated, and it's a goosebump to read somebody writing about the coaching 100 years ago and tell things that fits perfectly what my experience teaching in my life. So this is also, I want to share with you this story that I was recently find out about it.
Beautiful, Claudio. Yeah, just love hearing your insights. So, in terms of coaching, like we talked about, you've coached so many great players. I'm wondering about, how you're able to bring Simone Bolelli's ranking so high. I want to say you put it up by like 200 spots or something like that. It was a lot. So, I mean, I guess generally talk about your experience with Simone and how you're able to really push his ranking up very high.
Yeah, there is sweet and bitter thinking about my story with Simone, because the beginning was fantastic. I think 10 years ago or more I started with him, actually 15 years ago, was 2006. He was 19 years old, not known as a junior, coming from injuries. And I saw something special on him. And we made the goal setting was to go to the top, to the top of career, even number one in the world. And everything we did for the next 3 years was fitting what we said. He never stopped progressing. In 2008, if you look who he beat, is impressive. He beat Del Potro in French Open. He beat Mano de Pedra Gonzalez in Wimbledon. He was 12 in the world and with 3 tiebreakers. And he was third round Wimbledon to round French Open. He did something very years before nobody did. Imagine at some point he was in the final of Munich ATP event. He lost to Mano de Pedra Gonzalez, Fernando Gonzalez, 7-6 in the third. And in the same age, in the same tournament, Gonzalez from Chile, Berrettini lost 11 years later against Garin, 7-6 in the third, in the final. So until that point, the career of Bolelli, age and ranking was exactly the same like Berrettini. Obviously now Berrettini changed gear, is going straight to the top. And I'm sure, not only me, I think if you ask anyone who was there in those years, they were shocked that he was top 40 in the world and he was decided to split with me. And the reason is not the tennis reason. I don't want to go back and that's negative talking, but it was not the tennis reason. It was, when politics step into the sport, it cannot be good. It cannot be good. So I don't want to say more than that, but I like Simone is in semi-final Wimbledon in doubles today. So it's another semi-finalist Italian. Maybe it's a sign of destiny that, Berrettini, Bolelli, I think a lot of similarities until some point. Difference that Berrettini kept going with his coach, kept going with his believing, kept going in his project, ignoring anything different than that. And Simone was maybe not strong enough in this matter, but he's still great person, great family, and still talking to his father and his friends. And I'm so sorry for him because when I stopped with him, I got a call from Michael Berrer from Germany, and very good 2 years with him in Michael. It's one of the best person athlete I ever met. And then came Robin Soderling. Maybe I could never do that if I was keep going with Simone, but tennis days, no if. But I want to say what we did from 258 to 36 in 2.5 years, in 3 years about, and winning at so many good. He beat Safin, he beat Marat Safin in Barcelona when he was 20 years old. If you see the list. People he beat is scary. He beat Schutler and Cilic in Zagreb. I can go on a lot. So he beat Karlovic in Davis Cup in Croatia. Karlovic was 14 in the world. It was really scary results for that time. So I have great, sweet memories, and I want to stay with them. And I will try to cut the bitter up about what it could have been and never happened. That we don't know, we never know. We don't have no proof. So I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about great 4 years of my life I dedicate to that, maybe 3.5, and maybe open the door also as an example. I think without maybe for many young kids we now named Monaco, Berrettini, Caruso, Travaglia, Sinner, Musetti, etc. I'm sure that he was showing very powerfully that Italians can go all the way, and now it's happening.
Yeah, just again, incredible results from the Italians. So, just diving a little bit deeper into the, your work with Bolelli, like how are you able to get him to rise? Like, I'm wondering kind of a similar question, like, you have maybe an amateur player, like they have a low ranking, whatever, like what things did you do, maybe what types of goals, things like that? Like what did you do to push him up, like, in that type of a rise?
First of all, the schedule, the different surface makes big difference. I realized soon that he was a player for fast surfaces, grass, indoor. That was his best. He was good enough to play very well on clay, but his body type was not for clay, and his backhand was natural, incredible, good impact. The sound of the ball was very full. I loved that. Even when he was 300, he was playing in futures. And the forehand was more artificial. So I spent tons of hours to fix the forehand moving to the right, but there's a big difference when you say, I want to practice forehand. There are so many different forehands, there's already one big difference. If you go from right to left, you play from the left corner, inside out, inside in is one thing, which he was very, very good at that. But when you move into the right, he was struggling to play many balls moving from left to right, cover the right corner. So we had to make so many with the basket feeding to try to fix, also with the help of conditioning trainer, which was Marco Banicchi, to fix this part, to be solid there. And at that time, the reputation he had that the forehand was the best shot, but it was not true. I knew it. Everybody thought it was, because there was so much work on that and so much repetitions and variations on be ready for everything. And it was like hammering the ball with the forehand from inside out, but it was also very good on covering the right part. And then it can do for 3-4 shots, which happen in indoor or hard court. US Open beat Beneteau, was a fantastic match. I remember it was very solid there. And the backhand was very natural, so he was returning well, mix it up with the slice. So I created a complete player. Transition to the net was getting better. Play a lot of doubles with Fognini. We started very young to play Fognini Bolelli, which ended up to win a slam at some point years later. Serve was one of the best serve. Berrettini now I think is the best server ever in Italy, but not many Italians were serving well. Like Volandri, Starace at that time were not serving well. He started to count on his serve as a weapon, a real serious weapon. So that's what I did with him, and the trust, and the many times we travel, and the people thought it was my son. Say, what time is son playing? I said, no, I don't have son. It's not my son. It's my player, because they felt that the trust and the relation was so close. That they thought it was my son. So when this came down, empathy, that's the best level of empathy, and I go back to empathy. And when this was, start to have a cracks in this, not for me or Simone fault, then everything fall apart, and the career is. I'm really sad to say that by far the best rank he had in his career was when he was 23, when he was with me at 36 in the world. He never got even close in singles. He did racing in doubles. It's not the end of the world. He's still a great person, but it's a pity that, what Fognini did, he could have also done, or Seppi to go top 20 at least. But, again, there is no if in tennis.
Exactly. So kind of, obviously like a very specific question. I think you mentioned that his serve started to become a weapon. Do you remember what exactly it was that you improved on his serve that you can share with the audience?
Yes, I remember exactly, because I like to work with analogies. It works really well to make the players understand what you mean. And he's from Bologna, but he moved to Rome to practice. In that time, my academy called Forum is a beautiful place. So we go around Rome. In Rome, there is a tradition that every day at noon, there is a cannon that shoots to the city. Not with a bullet, of course, because the popes in the 18th century, they want to make exactly noon. Everybody knows it's noon, and because the bell of the churches were not a good time. So we see this cannon shooting, and the sound of the cannon. I use this example for him. It's called the Gianicolo, this place. So when I say Gianicolo, it means the cannon shooting. So the acceleration of the serve has to be like the cannon shooting. I want to hear the sound of like, boom! That is like no reply. So the acceleration has to stay loose and concentrate the acceleration exactly on this moment. And the people thought that was crazy, because, you say a few things during the match, and I'll say Gianicolo. And the people said, this guy is gone. And Simone was laughing because he knew exactly what I mean. So to not lose the speed on the serve, even second serve, you change the spin, but you don't change the speed. So that was the key point. If you mention, you will remember how I can explain to him to make a lot of 3 points, aces, but not only aces, but a lot of 3 points from serve, because the acceleration was spectacular, in every shot from him. The acceleration of the racket of Bolelli was famous in the world. And even Roger Federer, we have also, Roger likes him very much, have the disgusting luck to be asked from Federer coach to practice with Bolelli very often. So I have so many photos with me and Roger and Simone that's I can show off a lot, but, because he likes, because I think in some way maybe remind him a little bit one and backhand, and this So that's when I remember exactly how I was working with him to have this weapon for serve.
Very cool. I think I'm gonna go post on Simone's Instagram or something. Say, don't forget the cannon. But yeah, that but so what is that point? Is that once you get into the trophy position that you're saying that phrase, that word, or when was that you would say it?
Yeah, the pre-stretching. You do the pre-stretching, and you have to timing well. You have the timing in your head, like 1, 2. You have to be long pre-stretching. Don't rush. The danger is rush. Of course, the toss, the precision of the toss is crucial, but this level they have a great toss. Then modify the toss a little bit if you're gonna wide, but not too much, otherwise you're predictable. Not only playing hard, but to variate the speed, the direction, the spin, and to not be predictable. I had the chance to play against the one person in my career. His name was Pete Sampras, and I'm still impressed. It's pretty good. I was really impressed that I could no way I could read his serve. I was no way to pray for me, at least, And then David Sanguinetti, which I was coaching for 10 years, he played Sampras in Queens on grass, and he was giving hard time because Sanguinetti was a genius of return, much better than me on reading them. But when you don't read, even Roger Federer's serve is not the fastest, but he's the best in the world for me, because he's the one who hides the serve the most. First and second serve is more accurate. He has all the direction, all the spin. So I was trying with Simone, to have the speed, but also to have more variation, wide to the right, wide to the left, body serve, mix it up with serve and volley. Variations is a key there.
Yeah, for sure, Claudio. So shifting to Robin Soderling, obviously, like you said, one of the biggest wins ever against Rafael Nadal, top 5 player. Just curious about generally your experiences with him, and then also, how is he a different, player from your other experiences?
Well, this is another unbelievable story. Life was very generous with me to give me amazing stories behind. Again, we talk about the story behind. If I tell you why, because it's curious, he's Swedish, always had the Swedish coaches. At some point after Magnus Norman, which was me, that I was coaching, not at that level. I was working as a practice partner with Monica Seles, but 20 years before, I was not a coach. He's a woman. Many years, so I didn't have that experience. I coached. Bolelli was 30, Barry was 40, Falanghetti was 40. It's a little bit long story. For one, I can tell you how he chose me, and how the life, you never know, the sliding doors. So shall I tell you?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So I'm with Michael Barrer in Helsinki Challenger, 2009. No, 2010, he lose against the Continent, 7-6 in the third, I think 13-11 in tiebreak in the third. And then one of the match point for Michael, Henry Continent was very good single player before he's injured. Then he great in doubles, but he was a very good single player. He came in and the ball was out, so Michael won the match. So he raised the arms, and it was a Monday. And then the ball was called, the late call was called out, was called in. So they replayed the point, so he lost the match. So I was very upset, and so it was Monday. The next week, we have another challenger in Salzburg. So we have a few days free. It was Monday. So ATP, it was the week of ATP finals. No, 2009, sorry, it was 2009. So I go to London. ATP gave me the, tennis family badge, so I can see the match. I consider ATP finals as my upgrading. And I want to see from close all the top players. It's nothing higher level than that. And I go in the hotel. The first person I see is Magnus Norman with Robin Soderling. And Magnus, I know him. I played with him. And they said, Claudio, hi, nice to see you. What you do here? You don't have a player? I said, no, I don't have a player, but I have few days free. Instead of going to Rome home, I came here before going back to Salzburg for the next challenge. I'm working with Michael Barrer, and Robin was there, and he heard that. So long story short, after a couple of months, I was working with Robin. He won 3 titles in a row, round of 16, best results for him in Australia. I was doing great. I had the courage to ask him, say, Robin, how come that you were thinking on me? They asked me to, after Magnus complete his relation with coaching for him. So because I was so impressed that, I remember when he went to London for, so yes, I remember. I said, well, I heard that, and for sure somebody that is at the end of the year gets some 3 days to spend. What he does, he goes to tennis tournaments. So I was very impressed from that, and that's why I was guaranteed that you love game, and also I had Bolelli beating Soderling, Monte Carlo, Sanguinetti beat Soderling in Helsinki. So some of my players beating, so probably this also helped. But the main reason is that he was impressed from this. So imagine if this much space of the ball of continent is called out, I would not go to London because they would have to play the second round on Wednesday, and I would never coach Sodom. Wow. So imagine how the sliding door are, and you don't know when the chance is coming as a coach. And so I think it's very fascinating, again, to look at the story behind. And that's the reality of the tour, that you have to be there to know it. And I'm glad that sometime I have the chance to explain, because it's the best favor I can give, to not go in the misunderstanding of there is a system. I think system is very good until some point. When you teach tennis, of course, you need organization, but then you have to be flexible. No, many, they are accused to be unorganized, but they're not unorganized, are flexible, tailor-made job you have to do. So the story behind, each successful story, there is a human contribute to that. I want to say this again.
Yeah, thanks for that, Claudio. Super fascinating story. It's definitely a game of inches, of millimeters, in more ways than one. So in terms of Robin, what do you think was his biggest asset? And then also, what types of things did you work on with him?
Robin, goal setting, first thing you do was number one, go to number one in the world or winning majors. It couldn't be different. Goal setting and start with somebody number 5 in the world, beating Nadal, Djokovic, and I don't think he ever beat Federer. Oh no, he did in French Open. So he beat all of them. So he was for sure ready to go, and that was the goal. And the start was fitting with the goal. So I had this first speech telling about to him, have you been ever number 1 in the world? No. So you have to do something that you never did before to get the results you never did before. Have you ever won a major? No. So where was the land to change something, to modify it, or to add something that he never did before to go in this direction? And he completely got it. And for example, swing volley, never played swing volley. In Rotterdam, when he won the tournament in Rotterdam, was a big win. Beat Tsonga in the final, was playing a lot of swing volley coming in. And, to talk of the mental training, to be more into it inside himself on the mental trend. Don't let the emotion control him, but the other way around. He has to want to control the emotion and utilize the emotions as a weapon instead of being his limitation. If the emotions controls you, especially when you get too angry, too anxious, then it's like driving the car with the brake on. It doesn't go the car. So you have to try to release the brake and to, through the breathing, through the self-talking, we talk a lot about that. And so it was working really well. At some point, he had 20 wins and 1 loss with the gold Dolgopolov in round of 16 of Australian Open. He lost that. Dolgopolov played out really incredible from the clouds. He played an incredible match. Otherwise, he won every match he played. So that was the main speeches. Do something you never did before, and to be in the top of your emotion and come out with the best Robin possible in the most important moments. I have to add that Robin is a great person. His image, the people don't know him as a person, and I do, and he's a fantastic man. He's a great father now. He's very successful in his business, and is Jenny, his wife, at that time his girlfriend, is the best girlfriend of tennis player I ever met. She was incredible, supportive, and I never forget his speech. Is a YouTube that he says after he won Rotterdam and with Ali Gellem, I mentioned before as well. It was like a little family, and we said we are the best team in the world. I was in tears, still goosebumps when I say it. So the empathy I created was fantastic, and still very good friend with him. We're still very close, and we talk a lot. So this is another many reasons I'm proud, and I admit that I was very lucky in my career as a player and coach to have all these opportunities.
Yeah, what can I say? That's beautiful to hear. And I mean, you've done such great work. So, it seems I think it's really a theme here that, it's so important to have a great coach, somebody who's observant and knows a lot about the game. Because it seems like every time you work with a player, you're able to not only help them achieve, set and achieve goals, but you also find like the areas that they can improve upon and things like that. So I guess one question is, generally, when you work with players, did you work on their weaknesses, or did you try to amplify the strengths more, or was it kind of a mix usually?
Well, vocabulary that you use is very important. So you don't want to say is weaknesses is something to improve. You don't want to say this is bad, is something to improve. And you want to feed the confidence, and not, it's obvious that you need to work like everybody. I'm impressed from Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, all they talk is how to get better, how they can improve. I remember Nadal in Italian Open, once you just get number one in the world, and it was so into the toss of serve with Uncle Tony, who was maybe 20 years old. And it was so much, look at this guy's number one in the world, is only wants to get better. So this is the vocabulary used is always in positive, and you want to feed the confidence of the strengths, but also to take as a challenge goals that you never did before. So you never want to, for example, Robin Soderling, he never won a tournament back to back. When I went to Rotterdam, he won the tournament the year before in 2010. 2011 said, no, take is a big goal, and what he did, he won. So you got back to back, two years in a row, the same tournaments. And you have to always to search for this kind of things as a challenge. Try to stay away from negative talking. This is the problem. This you are hired to find solutions. I hear too much of. The problem is, this is beginning of the speech, but you are not hired if you are a coach to identify the problem, or at least if you do, you need to provide for the solution. You are a solution factory. That's your duty as a coach, not the guy who judge. Is coming too much of this. This is the problem, and that's it. They don't follow up what after identify the problem is their duty. It's completely wrong. You better change the job. You need to help. You need to support. Coaching is a supporting work, like a doctor. You need to find a cure, not the disease. And of course you have to do diagnosis, but I want to get better. I want to get very, very healthy as a tennis player. And so you provide for solutions, and at least try in cooperation, of course, with the player. You cannot ignore the player. You want to take out from the player things more than putting in. This is another typical things that I see too much of. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. Cannot ignore what the player feels. So you want to ask him, what do you feel about that? And let him talk. Listen to the player. You don't want to just talk. You want to listen to the player. Many they ignore what the player feels, which is the biggest mistake you can do as a coach. You have to listen to the player. And each time you start from scratch. I had the chance to, with Judy Murray once, to play with LTA. I did the one seminar for 3 days. And I keep insisting on tailor-made. So Judy nickname she gave to me, one of my nickname is the Tailor. I'm so proud of that coming from Judy. And because that's the reality. Again, a coach has to be observer of reality. The reality is each player is different. Each player, like Bill Tilden said 100 years ago, you need to treat each one as individual, and you want to start from scratch and respect the characteristic of each player.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Claudio. And so, a related question, you're talking about the power of language and how we have to be careful with that and build confidence and find solutions for the players and ourselves, of course. So you mentioned that you worked a lot on Robin Soderling's his self-talk. So of course it's kind of similar, but what types of maybe phrases was he saying to himself in his self-talk that you changed to him, his language, and then what was the language instead that he would be using?
Well, we go a lot in a very private and confidential area, but I can tell you that the balance is the goal. You don't want to have any extreme. You want to stay in the middle, and to always try to be objective and come out with a comment to yourself what's happening around you with a good balance. That is, you don't, if you see something is very extreme, it's always, you have to be worried. You want to find something that is very well balanced. Then there are more details that I don't feel to tell you. I'm sorry about that, but it's
no problem. No curse words.
Part of the very, very deep relation that coach player we had.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks, Claudio. So I guess one other question is, you have, as we talked about before we started recording, you consistently are learning, trying to improve your knowledge. And, you said a powerful thing. If you think that you as a coach know everything, then you should pretty much, you should stop coaching. So how best do we improve our knowledge of the game? Like, what do you do to keep improving your knowledge of tennis?
Well, as a coach, I have to be sometimes a thief. I have to listen to other coaches. I have to keep reading book. I have the main polar star is to have self-confidence as a coach. And the polar star is to be sure that you take a job only because you like it, not because you need it. This is something I always suggest to young coaches. And when, the difficulties as a private coach sometimes is that the player are you to be the one who guide you and tell things that maybe doesn't like to hear, but at the same time is the one who pays you. So the danger is that you have to pay your mortgage and the salary is coming from this player. And you know that if you say that there is something that is not right, is possible that he doesn't take it well and he fires you. But then you have to take the risk and the confidence of the coach that if somebody fires you, it can happen, you will find other players, and he's losing you, you are not losing him if you are confident enough. So I see a lot of too much of try to pet like the cat, to please the player, to not lose the job. I have to say, I see especially young coaches that they like to be there, they like to have the badge, to travel. It's very cool. Post on Facebook with the sunglasses, and then in their wells, it's how many likes. That's not the reason why you want to do the coach. You want to do the coach because it's a mission. Be ready to say no. The beginning of the relation is so important. So if you feel that the beginning is not that great, to take a lot of informations, try to meet the parents or the most close people to the players. If you have to create a team also with the family, and there is a relation high level with the agents. The player likes to have harmony around him. So you want to have a good relation with everybody around him. And if you smell that it's not gonna work, or it's gonna be some conflict inside the team, you have to say no. Or you have to be ready to lose it, knowing that he's losing you, because you give value to your work. That's what I always tell myself. I never call once in my life a player to, can I coach you? Or I was waiting that somebody looking for me, but this puts me in a stronger position. So that's my philosophy, my way of looking at my job, and always paid off very well. I was able, luckily, to have very high, I feel, and I'm so thankful to everyone, including today with you, to have this reputation to be asked the questions, and people even listen to my answers. So it's a compliment. So, but that's how I was able to do that through 10 years as a player and 25 as a coach. So 35 years of tennis plus the juniors, so almost 40 years of being in the business at very high level.
Yeah, just, big kudos to the amazing work you've been doing, Claudio. So, very interesting that you mentioned about, not asking necessarily players to coach and how it's more powerful if they ask you. So is it in the beginning when you're coaching, do you have to do the opposite? Do you have to be the one asking for things? And then later on, is that when you kind of, transition to not necessarily like asking for the positions?
Well, at the beginning it's tougher, of course, because people, they don't even know that you are a coach, or they don't even know you. So being a player helped me a lot. So being there and with Takao Suzuki, another fantastic story of my coaching life, which is also, and I think back, it touched my heart so much. And Takao is like my Japanese brother. It happened that when they see you play and they know that you are at the end of the career, it's possible that some young players, this guy is still playing, or maybe one day can be a coach. For example, Yuzny, when the last year he played, Shapovalov had a very good idea. Yuzny is incredible tennis mind. I don't know if they're still working together, but he did a great job with Shapovalov. And it's possible they think of you because they make 2+2. This guy is a very good player. Also, they see if you're a good fighter on court, if you have the passion for the game, if you're a good strategy as a player. So automatically, if you've never been a player, which means pro player, means in the major tournaments, then you need to start a network and to maybe work with some coach. Happened to me a lot. One of the many things I'm proud that I support many young coaches, including my ex-player. For example, David Sanguinetti is a great coach. And as I mentioned, many physical trainer. I promote young coaches and I open careers. I work with the GPTCA. I'm one of the founder of the Global Professional Tennis Coach Association, which I think is the best certification company in the world for coaches at high level. So we opened the door because I think it's good to share. You know, it's also good for me to share exactly what I'm doing now. And to share is good for me. It's good to, you know, to put the seed of what you believe, which is nobody has the monopoly of the truth, you know, but is an opportunity to compare for young coaches, to make a sync, to agree, to disagree, to agree 50%. So you have to start to follow some of the coaches that have the name, ask if they can mentor you. And the mentor, you try to get a mentor for you, even invest on yourself. Try to attend the seminars and the writing things. Try to start with juniors. Try to prove yourself that you will improve player regardless the level where you start with. You know, if you have good junior, it's already good sign that you can show that you are able to improve players. You know, so it's a longer work. It takes longer to get the respect and consideration from the top players. But happen all the time. You mentioned Mourinho, never played soccer at a high level, but you know, somehow he was assistant coach. He had his mentor, and I can mention Arrigo Sacchi. He was one of the top with Milan. He won everything. He never played football. He started with a very low amateur in Italy league, and then he went all the way to Milan and won everything possible to win. So it's also fascinating. For sure, they asked me, is it important to have been a player to be a coach? I think it's a bonus, in my opinion. It helps, but it's not enough at all. You know, at all. After 3 months, the player cannot care less about what you did as a player. They want to know what you give to them, legitimately.
Yeah, 100%, Claudio. I love that. So I can't let go, of course, when you mentioned that. I think it was, I believe, Takao Suzuki, that, you know, working with him and thinking of the memories kind of, you know, touched your heart and everything. So I wanted to just ask you about that. What in particular, how is it touching? And I know it seems like you probably you said you lived in Japan for a while, and I know you worked with him for like 11 years or so. So can you talk about that experience and how it impacted you?
That was amazing. You know, I was just at the end of my playing career. It was 1 year I played doubles with Takao. We made 2 final challengers. But I was start already coaching him. And the first time we went to Japan in 96, so no smartphone, no internet, nothing. I felt the difference of culture. You know, there's nothing more far than Italian and Japanese. So we had to face this. He didn't speak English. I had to teach him English. When he came first to me in Satellite, it was called Satellite at that time in Holland. You know, teach him how to play on clay. I was still beating him easy on clay at least, and I didn't speak English. So if you listen now, him is a great commentator in Wow, it's very important channel in Japan. He speaks very English when he do an interview, but with Italian accent, you know, because he learned from me, and he's Japanese, you know. So this is very interesting, and I learned so much in the human part of view of when 2 culture clashes. You know, I went to Japan. I speak to Takao. I said, I'm coaching you. Yes, I give up my playing career. I will only play doubles with you. But you have to promise that you want to be international. What I mentioned before for the Italians, you know, you want to travel. You don't want to be the king of Japanese league or Japanese championships or play Davis Cup in Japan, get a World Cup, Japan Open. I don't come to you with you to do that. I want you to compete on court number 18 at 9 o'clock in the morning, Bolles in the Challenger in, I don't know, anywhere. In the States, South America, and he said, yes, I promise I'll do that, because I think tennis is very open mind sport. You know, it's not a corner in the world where there's no tennis tournament, tennis coach, tennis player, tennis, anything that. So you have to be ready to compete with Europeans, with South Americans, Australians, other Asians, everybody. Yes, I promise, because in Japan you have all this Japanese language. Speak only in Japan. You're an island. At that time was more isolated, Japan. You know? So the only Japanese food, eat only Japanese food. This is great, but it's not good for tennis. So you have to be more open. And I made this a cultural operation. So another great story is that the first time he was 18, he went to Japan Championships and he won it. You know, for not being seeded, he beat Goichi Motomura in the final in front of his emperor. The emperor came to see the final. And when he got the ceremony in front of the emperor with a microphone. He said, I could never expect that. I thought I was going to be arrested, because the emperor Japanese is almost a divine figure, He said, yes, this is just first step. And he said, oh, I told him, so because in Japan, we are just an island, we have to open up our mind, we have to speak more languages, we have to travel, we are too close in front of his emperor. He's representing the soul of Japan. It was Akihito, the son of Hirohito. Hirohito is an historical figure in the World War II. And everybody was frozen like this, because you don't have the lesson in television in front of his emperor. So the emperor was standing up and clapping first to what he said. So he had the endorsement of his emperor on a cultural base that he agreed with me. And I was the only non-Japanese in the stadium, Reaki Stadium, 10,000, but they're going to play the Olympics now. And I was on tears because I got from the fear of disrespecting the emperor. And as maybe somebody come to me from having the best ever endorsement and to create a connection between two very different cultures. I learned that when two cultures, the tendency is to take the best out to one another. And this is the best medicine against the racism. Because you have to know the other culture. Nobody's worse or better. It's just different. You have to know, and that's why traveling is so important. So Takao improved him as a person, blowing the best out of Italian culture, and I improved myself as a person, knowing the Japanese culture, taking the best from Japanese culture. My wife is originally Japanese. I know this culture so well. So it's incredible to create bridges. Tennis, and this is the best bridge I ever built through tennis, and so unforgettable and a lifetime relation with Takao. I talk to him every week now. He's a great commentator. I'm sure he's doing great favor. He opened the door for Japan. Kei Nishikori once he told me, you remember I came to Takao clinic to learn. He was a kid. I said, no, I don't remember. But you see, he opened the door to Japan. He was number one for 10 years. He beat Sui Japan. He beat Michael Chang when he was still top 20. He beat so many Yankees in Stockholm. He was in the quarterfinal. Was congratulated from Stefan Edberg. It is things that in the men's tennis, besides Shuzo Matsuoka, which is a great champion, was a little bit an exception. As a size, he was a very tall guy and strong, a great champion. But Takao really feel that the Japanese could make it in the men's. In the women, they already have great champions, Kimiko Date, etc. But in the men's, he opened the door. So it's another incredibly pride of me to have been done in my life, this as Italian from Rome in Japan, living 4 years of my life in Japan.
Beautiful. Love hearing that. Love hearing the stories, especially. It's just so interesting. Kind of switching gears a little bit, Claudio. I've heard you talk, and I think it was on my friend the Adam Blitzer show. You talked about coaching. Well, I guess like the payments, like how, I guess some coaches, they just get paid based on whether the player wins money in the tournaments, and then others are like hourly. So how would you suggest coaches choose, like between, those obviously big impact, which way you arrange the payments for coaching?
Well, there are different options. I think you're talking about private coaching, because there are also coaches that are not paid from the players. They're paid from a sponsor, paid from a federation. So if we limited the conversation on private coaching, I think is the most fascinating, the most chance to win more money, to make more money. It's not a salary, is a percentage. Normally, I suggest to link the payment to the level of believing you have in the player. When Bolelli started, it was 300 in the world. I asked him, give me, X percentage. Was almost zero, because the first, even if you win a future, it's $300. So whatever percentage, if you have 10%, is $30. You pay one breakfast and that's it. But if you're 10%, it was not 10%, but was just as an example of somebody going third round of Wimbledon in 1 week is pretty good, or linked by the ranking. If at the end of the year you get some ranking, you have a bonus. And this motivates the players a lot, because the players knows I was a player. I was the other side of the discussion. When I was a player, I had to pay my coach. I always like when I was not asked, okay, pay me this amount per year, no matter what. So it doesn't change a bit of his payment if I win or lose. That's doesn't smell good. So You want to have a coach and tell you, okay, give me the minimum guarantee because I have to survive. I have to pay my bills according also what is your ranking, what the sponsor are, what is behind. And then you give me percent of prize money is always the best, you know, and or sometimes you can touch the contracts if you can be an agent, but then it maybe it's too much work. It's better he has an agent that you trust, you know. I think it's always the coach job to choose the agent and not the other way around. But that's depends, you know, the agent that they don't like me when I say that, but that I can only say what I believe on. And so I think it's the player knows that if he wins, you make more money, you're in the same boat, you know, and it's a good feeling to know that you're in the same boat. You win together, you lose together, you take the risk for him, you know, you take the risk for him or for her. Is it a stable job? No, you don't do for the money. It's not, you know, if you want to make a family, if you want to pay your bills, you want to improve your quality of life, you want to buy a house, it's very unstable because, you know, so many variables, even if you believe in the best relation with the player, you believe it, but it takes time, it takes years to make it. And during these years, we are human beings, you know, that the relation is coming, their sentimental lives that can change the mood and the balance, the routine. What is true in 1 year, the next year is totally different. So it's very unstable, but you know, you do that because you have the mission to that. You have the vocation to do that, not because you want to. If you want to be stable, choose another job. Go to work, I don't know, in the bank, go working for some companies. And if you want to do the coach, you have to be ready. That is a lot of emotions, is a lot of instability financially, with a chance to make very good money if you go really to the top. But you have to be really going to the top. And or maybe you can have more than one player, you know, you can survive having a little team of 2 or 3 players, or you have a job, you know, you have part-time traveling, you have a tennis school that provide your security to pay your bills, your mortgages, but then you part of the year you destinate to travel. So there are different combination and options. That's the way I look at it.
Fascinating. Appreciate the insight. So would you say that most of the coaches are doing like, you know, base salary just to survive and then a percentage and then also maybe supplementing with like some other job? Because it does seem, you know, like you said, it's very tough, you know, living.
Yeah. I really don't know exactly the numbers, but
Sure.
Yes, I think that there is many coaches have families, they have kids, and that's why also now there is more than one coach, because at my time, not everybody was crazy enough like me to travel for 20 years and more, 40 weeks per year. So your availability is now less, and the player also maybe is a good solution to have 2 coach friends that they can split the traveling, or traveling with the conditioning trainer. It's not bad for the players sometimes to go without the coach, so they not only rely on the coach, but they can rely on themselves on create the tactics, on fighting, but have somebody there to take care of the conditioning. So it's pretty much, you can be creative, and also depends on the player feelings, depends on the player situation. Somebody likes to go with the girlfriend or with the wife because it makes them feel good. So there's a combination of possibilities. Now I'm consultant of Andrej Martin. He's a great guy, great player from Slovakia that is doing well this year. He took a set to Djokovic in Belgrade, and it is now close to play Olympics. So I never left the tour completely, but you know, I slow down a lot. But you know, who knows? Maybe one day, if I'm in the right situation, I can go back more. Now I feel my main job is what is written here, JTCC, which you know that is a really fantastic fit with my believing, the atmosphere. I'm so grateful to Ray Benton, my CEO, and Beza Ponka is the president of JTCC in College Park. I couldn't be more happy and more lucky. The first time I have a boss, I have an organization behind me. I couldn't be more proud, and I really want to keep going with that a lot. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that. Even keeping, you know, contributing with my experience, my contacts, my coaching in different ways.
For sure, Claudio. Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about JTCC Junior Tennis Champions Center. The one in College Park is maybe like 20 minutes away from me, and I've played there a lot for, you know, tournaments and things like that. And I also, as I mentioned to you before, took a lesson with Vesa many years ago, and it was one of the toughest lessons I ever had. But yeah, they do a great job there. And, Dennis Kudla and Francis Tiafoe, as we saw, he did well in Wimbledon, and they're products of JTCC, as are many other great players. And,
yeah,
Claudio.
Robbie Montgomery, she's doing really well. Him is a great junior and top prospect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just a great, when I go in there and I see like the pictures of all the players, it's like, all the best players that I have seen in the area and in other areas too. So very cool that you are there in the Jacksonville site at Bolles, I believe. So Claudio, the time has gone very fast. I know we've been talking for a while. So Claudio, what are 3 books that you would gift to a friend to help them improve their tennis game?
Yes, I was hoping for this question because you mentioned Besa Ponca. Now I got a present from Besa once. And now I realized that when I was talking about the book of Bill Tilden, that's the book, Match Play and the Spin of the Ball, William Tilden. This is nice. the father of every coach, even before Harry Hopman. So this is from JTCC library. And you see how important it is to have such organization and such high level of tennis culture and the grips and 100 years ago, and they're so utilizing. We can utilize this nowadays incredibly. So Match Play and the Spin of the Ball, William Tilden. Then many they already read, but this is I keep the Inner Game of Tennis from Timothy Gallwey. This book that I think is a must every coach. And the other one I said is an Italian tennis training from Alberto Castellani, that I hope one day will be translated in English because it's really an incredible source of inspiration. So, but this I got a present from Besa. We both know Besa, so I really want to show how precious is the present I got from him, and how proud I am of JTCC matching my believing in tennis and to have this opportunity to work with JTCC. So that's the 3 books that I can mention.
Awesome, Claudio. Thanks a lot for that. And we'll link to these books in the show notes page so you all can check them out. So Claudio, also just want to ask you about your day-to-day at JTCC in Bolles, Jacksonville, what you're doing there, if you could just tell us.
Yes, I love to be in a school. It's a very prestigious high school in Bolles in Jacksonville. And it's very sportive school because they have 20 sports and more. So I have the duty to take care of the tennis program as a JTCC on behalf of Bolles School. So day by day is to mainly create a good team spirit within the coaching team. I think that's the job different for coaching as I'm the director. So I have to take care of that. There is experienced coaches, younger coaches, that each one has his own way, and to get the best out of it. And everybody needs to be a team player and to be believing in the project and learn from each other, including me. Of course, I have a lot to learn from our coaches, and inter-exchange with College Park. Now COVID didn't allow this to do anymore for the last 2 years, but now we like to we go to College Park, and College Park coaches and players come to Jacksonville. That's this incredible boost for both and to help each other. And we have all programs from Red Dot, in entry level 4-year-old kids, all the way to then it's called Yellow Strikers. They develop and then they go to high school level. They play for the school, and then high performance college prep. JTCC, I want to remind, is for sure the school in America with most players brought it to the college, to have these college careers. I learned not too long ago the beauty of NCAA, of college tennis. I've been coaching 1 year to learn in the UNF, University of Florida, which is nearby where I live. And then till professionals. So we have professionals. We have another conditioning trainer who lives in Jacksonville. We joined forces. His name is Jacob Mayer. That is funny enough. Months ago, I said, Claudio, I will go. It's okay. I go to Paris for Roland Garros because I have this girl from Czech asked me to work with her there. And great. It's a great experience. It's Barbara Krejcikova that she won single and double with him as a physical trainer. So the coaching team is my main job, to put it together and to be sure that is all in the same direction, go in the same direction. And then I go myself still on court, but a little bit less. Create the groups. It's very important to identify the groups, talk to the parents, and try to create a sport culture, tennis culture in this case, the highest level possible. Not always easy, not always easy to explain parents. They have expectations that they are not exactly the right one for the son and daughter, but it's our job to try to interact and try to explain. And then I cannot be more supported that JTCC supporting us in our school.
Yeah, awesome to hear that. Just again, such a great facility. They do a great job. I mean, all the coaches there are so good. So, Claudio, where can the audience follow you online or just, see what you're doing? I mean, I don't know if you have like a, TikTok or Instagram, Facebook, anything like that you want to shout out for us to check out.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and I am using social networks to create contacts. I have a website. It's called Claudio Pistolesi Tennis, where is my, pillars of my believing. And if you want to contact me through the email is pistolesi@jtcc.org. And if you want to see Bolles.org is where we are in Jacksonville as a school that we mentioned, Bolles School, beautiful. And of course, JTCC.org if you want to see the College Park organization. And you can call them if somebody's interested to find me. But, the best is to send me an email that I mentioned, cpistolesi at jtcc.org. That's the easiest way to do it nowadays. I'm in Facebook and Instagram. I think it's not difficult to find me.
Very good. Well, we'll do then. And I will include these links as well so that you can have these resources to follow what Claudio is doing or check out his website, which you also definitely do, or JTCC. So, Claudio, I'll close with this question, which I ask all my guests, which is, obviously you've given us a lot of great advice today, but what is one key tip that you can give our audience to help them really improve their tennis games?
Well, the most important is to have the goal setting, knowing that regardless the level, the motivation of being a tennis player or loving tennis is always worth it. So you are a tennis player. It's enough to be very proud of that. Tennis is a very difficult sport. There are more sports similar to come up like pickleball, paddle. But I hear that's good because they're easy. That's the what I don't like, because I like to be competitive and challenge myself. With tennis is a bigger court, it takes years to learn. The score of tennis is no time limit and not high. And there is so many ways to be successful. To be successful as professional. We talk so much about professional tennis, but I also want to mention the NCAA college tennis. So you study JTCC specialists. You see the logo of JTCC is the player playing serve with the square hat of graduation. I'm inside the school. I founded also my company years ago, which I still run. It's called CP, Claudio Pistolesi Enterprise, that I merged with the JTCC to invite the players with the potential and interest to do the college career. So you can be very good. My son was playing number 1 and 2 at USF in Tampa, and he was great with his tennis because he support the family with scholarship to get a graduation. Now he's a professional in other parts, but thanks to tennis. If you are a doctor, but you're a good tennis player, you can play the championship of doctors. So you are known as a good doctor, but also as a tennis player. So it's socially to create contacts for your job is very important. So it's always worth it to love tennis. So this is my last advice to the audience. To love tennis, and is always, if you like tennis, don't worry too much about your level, winning or losing. Try to position yourself where you can, the best you can, but it's always worth it to be keeping lifetime a tennis player.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, that's just the best message you can give, really. I mean, I've personally experienced, as you have, I've gotten jobs from tennis. I met so many great people from tennis. My health is better because of tennis. My mentality is better, and so just great to keep going and love the sport. So, Claudio, thank you so much for your time. I know your time's valuable, and you've been speaking with us for a while. So thank you for your contributions to tennis and for, both past, now, and future as well. So big shout out to you and to JTCC as well. So thank you for coming on to the podcast, and I hope to speak with you again soon, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure. As I said, I love to share. So I am thanking you for having me. And I hope to inspire somebody and to make some people think about tennis and follow so many things, beautiful things around our beautiful sport. And so thank you. I hope to see you again.
Thanks, Claudio.